And welcome to Real Hawk Talk, episode 244, Rams Week 18 post-game show. Um, not sure who all we'll have today, so it might be kind of a quick one, but the big news here is Seattle stays alive. They have a shot at the playoffs still. They had to win to have any chance, obviously. A tie would have been also bad. So yeah, they a little questionable along the way, maybe, but they did it. They win the game. They stay alive. There's I think a lot maybe to take away from this game. I don't know how much of it is feel good. Um, but I think I don't really want to dwell on any of the negatives really. Right now I'm still fingers crossed, hoping for that playoff spot. I think that would be really exciting. I think it's whoever does get this last spot is locked into playing the Niners, which is those haven't been the most fun games this year, but it's playoffs. It's miles away from where people thought this team was going to be, and I'm sure for guys like Gino and a lot of the other players on that team, making it into the playoffs is a big deal. So yeah, hey Brian, fresh out of the stadium, why don't you share some of your thoughts on the Seahawks staying alive in the playoffs today by beating the Rams?
Hey Nathan, good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Um, yeah, like I was cheering like crazy for the Seahawks to win. Whether or not it's the best thing for the Seahawks to win or not, I always want that team to win. And like Geno Smith is almost like he was a microcosm for this game because like you can't help but cheer for him even though he's making dumbass plays. And you know, I thought Jalen Ramsey should have been tossed out of the game for that hit. That was a blatant, like, dirty hit, and he knew exactly what he was doing. So I didn't like that, but I'm glad Jalen Ramsey ultimately lost this game. And look, Kenneth Walker breaks 1,000 yards. I was happy to see that. I wish he would have gotten the touchdown there at that 1 yard line. I was like, oh man, he almost got his 10th touchdown, but didn't quite get it. And good to see Tyler going over 1,000. It was good to see Gino getting his 30th. So yeah. I mean, it was ultimately nice to hopefully send Sean McVay out on a losing note and getting swept by the Seahawks in the season. I will take it. Funny things happen when you're not the team with the best roster. So Sean McVay apparently can't handle that. He's gonna just run away. So that's all I got to say at the jump. What have you said so far?
Not much. I was just talking about staying alive, playoff chances, playoff scenarios. So yeah, for folks who maybe aren't aware, Seattle needs the Lions to win now. Sadly, the Lions don't have anything to play for. They've been eliminated now. But that's a divisional game. I think Campbell has that team coached up pretty well, carrying pretty well. So I think that they will play hard, but we'll see. I don't think I quite agree with Ramsey getting ejected. I think Ramsey almost single-handedly won that game for the Rams. The biggest play of that game, I think there's a couple. Ramsey making that tackle on Walker to prevent a touchdown was massive. Whatever that pass was that Baker threw, that Diggs picked off. Do you have an opinion on the Diggs celebration, Brian?
Well, I mean, I respect that he was trying to put it in the Rams' face a little bit, but I mean,
do you know whose face specifically he was putting it in?
No, I did not.
So the person that he stuck the ball out to and ran towards the sidelines towards was Bobby.
Oh no, did he really?
Yeah.
I think it's all good fun. I don't think there's any bad blood there. But like I tweeted this. I don't know if they were talking about it on air, but there was a really strong wind, and Mayfield was throwing into it on that play, and so it hung up there. And if it didn't have that, I mean, the Seahawks were beat on that play, and the ball just hung up in the air because of that wind. And I'm pretty sure it probably affected the Myers kick. I hate to say it, but 'cause I just like to rip on Myers. But I was standing at that end of the end zone, and it was whipping through there. So I think that wind definitely affected the end of the game.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so of the kind of the milestones that you talked about, which ones are the biggest to you?
I think the Kenneth Walker thing. I mean, he's the guy that's hopefully part of the future. Gino, in his most optimistic, maybe he's here for a few more years, but like he had a really rough last half of the season, last quarter of the season. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy it happened, but he made just pretty much every game in the last 6 or 7 games. He's made 2 to 4 just brain dead throws that just I don't know what's going on with him. The Tyler stuff's nice, but I gotta admit, I'm kind of wondering. I want to look at salary ramifications, but with the many receivers as there are in this draft, I'm wondering if there's a chance that they will look to move Tyler this offseason. He's still got, I think, some value. So we'll see, but I'm always happy for Tyler. Man, one other thing really quick. I don't know if you saw this, but DK almost blew the first field goal opportunity after Gino had gotten hit and they were in that field goal for the right in the regulation. DK was going at it with Rand. Like, how stupid. Like, I've been pretty, like, okay with DK's antics. That was, like, he really almost lost in the game. Of course, ended up not mattering. But that was awful. Like, so, anyway, those are my quick – I don't know. Which one for you? I'm sure the running back is what stands out for you.
Yeah. A big round number for a running back is a big deal. I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of, ultimately kind of meaningless, right? But not that they aren't, they all had good years, and that's putting up big yards like that is representative of that. I think Gino being the all-time single season passing leader for whatever, however you say it, for the Seattle, that's kind of amazing. That's Seattle is not the most storied franchise, but they've had good quarterbacks, and I think that's impressive. That's legitimately, I mean, anytime that you can lead a franchise in anything, that's pretty amazing, I think. So, great season by Lockett, great season by Walker. But I think the one that's maybe the most significant or the most notable to me is probably Gino.
Yeah, well, if we want to be like super downers about it, both the Kenneth Walker and the Gino numbers is the 17-game season. So
That's true. That is true.
He was still fourth on the passing yards in a single season before this game, and I think he was like 7th in passing touchdowns in a single season before this game. So I think that's part of it, but still, I mean, I'm hoping this turns into an offensive rookie of the year for Kenneth Walker. I think he's got a pretty good resume for that.
Yeah, that'd be neat. I do think so. You brought up the DK thing. I mean, in some ways, the refs really gifted Seattle this game. Everyone's really quick to point out when refs mess stuff up and that they're biased against Seattle and that the NFL rigged this scheduling thing with the Lions against Seattle. But I think you can between just completely missing, and there was a ref right there that should have seen that DK thing, and that should have been a penalty. And then the running to the punter thing was pretty bad.
That was so bad.
Yeah. So bad that the ref apologist, the designated ref apologist on the broadcast came on and was like, yeah, no, this is no good. Thanks to the refs on this one. I don't know that we get to say it a lot, but we probably do today. All right. So other big news for today. The news here is less good. The Broncos win. I believe that locks Seattle into the 5th overall pick.
That's correct.
Yeah. So the Jalen Carter, Will Anderson sweepstakes got real dicey with that Broncos win today, which is kind of a bummer. I don't know. Any I know you're sad about that one, Brian. You've been way into this.
Yeah, I was bummed about it. I was pretty annoyed with the Colts. I mean, that was the bigger story here. I expected the Broncos to win today. The Colts had that game. It almost looked like they threw it. Like 4th and 13, 4th and 20, throws a Hail Mary, like, touchdown, and one of the Colts guy, like, mistimes his jump and, like, falls right. Like, and then they give up a 2-point. Like, it just was, like, bizarre. And that, if the Colts had won, the Seahawks would have had a top 4 pick, which is, like, I was hoping for. You know, it didn't go their way. 5th pick. What I think that if, my personal perspective is I'm hoping now that what that will mean is there's a bigger chance for a trade back and to get maybe another first round pick next year. That's probably my ideal situation now. But it probably means you're trading from 5 to 10, 5 to 9 to pick up another first next year. So, you'll have to be comfortable with, potentially a Miles Murphy or a Brian Brezzi, or, maybe you go Skoronczyk? I can't remember. Or Skronsky. Yeah, maybe as a guard. So we'll see. But, like, 5th pick ain't nothing to be sad about. It's just and as someone who complained a lot about the Ravens getting put in 10 a.m. game, the way that game was going to go, I mean, the Ravens didn't play anybody. The Chargers would have known that they were going to have the 5th seed by, like, the first quarter of that game, and they still probably would have played the game the same way. So I don't think ultimately that changed much. But, I'm sure Russ will talk about how wonderful, like, how they just captured it too late, and he'll end the season, like, all positive. That's a little annoying, but 5th pick. I'm not going to complain about that for sure.
Yeah. The funny thing about the season is Seattle probably ends up with about the picks people would have predicted, but for the completely, like, wrong reasons or opposite reasons. So for all the talk about, Denver disappointing and Seattle exceeding expectations in terms of what it means for draft day, probably not really much. Okay, I unfortunately, I'm going to be totally honest, and this is going to shock you, Brian, and it's going to shock all of our listeners. I don't have anything really nice to say about this game, and I don't want to be that guy right now because I am very excited about playoffs, and so I'm just holding out hope that Dan Campbell does Seattle proud here, and they win that otherwise meaningless game for Detroit. Do you have what are the positives that you're taking away from this game today, or do you want to be that guy and you want to tear into the team?
No, well, I will just say I'm about to go into a tunnel, so if you lose me, interrupt me, okay? So look, I think that you have to give praise to the defense. This was the 3rd straight game, end the season with the 3rd straight game where they hold a team under 300 yards. The Rams, as bad as the offense is, they ran all over them last time, like, and moved the ball pretty freely against the Seahawks. Didn't do that this time. Got a key turnover that led to the win. I think that Uchenna Nwosu had a really nice game, both in run defense and in pass rushing. I thought Bruce Irvin with 2 sacks, Darrell Taylor with another sack. Darrell Taylor ends the season with 9.5 sacks. I mean, I think that's pretty crazy and pretty notable. I thought Mike Jackson had a nice game at corner. I think he's been pretty solid the last few games. I thought Tariq had a tough game. He gave up, like, of the completions that Baker had, a decent chunk came with Tariq in coverage, which has not been the case this year. So that was kind of interesting. I thought Alexander Johnson, I think the linebacker that they played, 34, I thought he had a decent game. I don't think it was great. But yeah, like, I felt like the defense did more than their part in this game, and so I give them credit. I thought the pass protection was decent in this game after some rough moments. I thought Charles Cross had a really key block on the 4th down play where they flipped it out to Kenneth Walker. Tough block in space for a tackle to make, and he did it really well. So, yeah, I mean, I thought Mike Dixon had a nice game when he punted. He had some pretty big punts. So, yeah, like, those are the kinds of things that stood out to me. The most negative for me really is DK. I felt like DK was very tough after the whistle and very weak during it. There was a number of plays where he did not fight for the ball. He did not use his body. And I don't know, man. This game like left a bad taste in my mouth with DK, and I have not had that. I've not been a DK detractor, but I thought he kind of got clowned by Jalen and did not rise to it. After he did that to Jalen in the last game, I just didn't see him. I was impressed with that. So that's the thing that obviously in Gino, like Gino's game today was just wacky. So yeah, those are kind of things I saw.
I'll defend DK a little bit. I mean, one, Jalen Ramsey is amazing. He had an amazing game. Um, I think the things that you can point to with DK not being physical enough or whatever. I mean, I think at some point we have to accept that like DK uses his size in certain ways and doesn't in other ways, and he is who he is, and that is a very very good player. Maybe he's not going to quite be the all world guy that it looked like after first 1 or 2 years, but he's still a great player. I think that there was an uncalled DPI on that touchdown that the touchdown attempt that passed to him in the end zone. The cornerback got his hand wrapped around and pulled on his shoulder, it looked like. And again, physical in some ways, not in other ways. He does catch that ball over the middle of the field and absolutely crunch Taylor Rapp. Rapp came out of that way worse for that collision. So it's not like his size and physicality, never shows up or didn't show up in this game. But I think is he always as physical or uses his body the way you want when he's like before to create space to make a catch. Yeah, I think sometimes that's lacking. But again, Jalen Ramsey's a pretty good player. Jalen Ramsey played his absolute ass off in this game. I thought he was amazing. The interceptions and like I said, that tackle on Walker towards the end of the game were pretty great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing on DK and the positive had nothing to do with this game in particular, but I don't know why it stood out to me, but in the morning game when the Bengals were playing, like there was a play that Jamar Chase made, and they're like, and that puts Jamar Chase over 1,000 yards. I was like, shit, like DK has out produced Jamar Chase. I consider Jamar Chase like one of the best in a very pass prolific offense. So I mean, I don't know. Like I think I overall for this season have been really happy with the progress that DK has made. I think he had fewer drops. I think he did make more like variety of catches on variety of routes. I thought there was some, progress in making catches in contested situations. I don't know. Just I thought he had kind of a losing game to me in how he approached this one. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but it stood out to me.
No, I mean, I think, as much as people like to complain about some of DK's different antics like that, I mean, sticking your finger in somebody's face mask like that, especially when you were getting a call going your way, that could have easily been a losing play. But it didn't. So, so yeah. Jamar Chase, though, I believe he only played 13 games this year, right?
That might be true.
I
don't
think you
follow
missed
Jamar Chase that closely.
Yeah. Other folks in the chat are saying that as well. So, Tyler Lockett had a great game. I know you talked about maybe moving on from him at some point, but I think if you're looking for bright spots on the offense, I think it's probably Walker. He turned a couple broken tackles into some nice gains, and then I think Lockett had some big plays. Gino's best moment, that he dropped that ball right in there really perfectly, but Lockett was there and got that and everything. And that was a cool route by Lockett too, where he just drives the corner off to the side and then, bends it back in and everything makes that. So yeah, I think Lockett's another bright spot on the offense, but those were few and far between in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to say, like, as much as like, I think we both probably felt like Gino played a pretty like bad game in a lot of ways. That was a dime. I mean, that was a dime. There was like, he just fit it in the bucket, and people are like, oh, Gino is just throwing these shorter throws. Like, did anyone watch like the Detroit game or the New Orleans game earlier in the season? Like, he's showing like a great deep ball. I thought that was a great throw. He had a couple great throws, but man, he put the ball in just some stupid places. So yeah, I thought Tyler, you're right, deserves credit for also playing hurt. He's still playing with a broken hand people have probably forgotten about. And, and he had a bruised shin that he was questionable for this game. So, like, people earlier in the year were on Tyler because he dove down. I think it was maybe in the New Orleans game when he could have got a first down on a third down to avoid contact and, question his toughness. Like, that dude played when a lot of people wouldn't have. So, and he made plays. So, me talking about maybe moving on from him has nothing to do with my love for Tyler Lockett. I love the dude, but I'm just all about, like, how do we get this team to have the maximum amount of talent? And he's nearing that age where, like, he still has value, but in a year, 2 years, he might not. So he's going to have 1,000+ yard season, 4 years in a row, close to, I think he has 9 touchdowns. If you could get, I don't know, Nathan, if you could get a 3rd-round pick, a 2nd-round pick for Tyler Lockett, are you making that move?
I mean, I've been saying I would do that trade for a couple of years now. So, yeah, a 2nd-rounder for sure. I would make that deal. But we will have lots of time. Hopefully, it'll be another week. We'll have a full week to talk about Seahawks football again. But very, very possibly we are going to be talking about the offseason and the future of this team on Wednesday. So there is one. We have spent a little while now. I don't know how long we've been talking. 21 minutes. I thought it was longer than that. And we have not talked about the most important part of this game. There was one thing that I think really stood out. It was I don't know. I think it's a topic that we have to get to, and that's Pete Carroll wearing a baseball cap. I have 2 questions for you.
I didn't even see this.
One, have you ever seen Pete wearing a baseball cap? I'm guessing he's done it, but I don't remember it. And then 2, what was your take on the baseball cap, on the look as a whole? I thought he looked like my grandpa when he goes out to golf in the fall, but I'm curious what your opinions are here.
So I love it. I think I saw a mention of it somewhere. I don't know if I've seen it though, so I can't really give you the breakdown maybe you need from me, but I love that he's wearing a hat. I don't know why. That's so weird. Like, of all days.
Have you ever seen him wear a baseball cap before?
I've seen him wear beanies. I've
Beanies,
seen him wear
sure.
like beanies before, like cold weather, that kind of thing. I don't know if I've ever seen him do the straight baseball cap. And why would he when you got a gorgeous head of hair like that? Like, I mean,
I have a very important detail, and I'm curious
Yeah.
if this is just a me thing or what your thought is here. So, I don't know what it's called, but in where you have the little adjustable thing in the back, right? You can make
yeah.
And you have the hole, right? The gap that's above the band. He had a couple gray, or not a couple. He had gray flowing locks coming through the gap and over the band on the back of the hat.
Yeah.
What is that an acceptable look? Is never been a thing for me to worry about much because I don't wear caps and I don't have hair. So is that kosher?
That's a fascinating question. I think that it's already debatable whether you should be asking a guy in his late 40s that question, because I probably have no credibility in answering it. I definitely have been a tuck the hair down underneath the band kind of guy,
Right.
But hey, Colby Parkinson, he probably rocks it the same way if you wear it. So what's stopping Pete from doing it?
That Colby Parkinson looks really weird in a baseball hat. What did you think of Colby Parkinson's day? Did he or Noah Fant stand out to you? They both had, I think Colby had at least 2 catches. One of them pretty big, but it looked like a busted coverage. Fant had, I don't know, 3 or 4, but I don't think he had any particularly big gains. Any thoughts on the tight ends?
I thought Colby played well. The one I'm thinking of definitely was not a busted coverage. It was Gino throwing it in the hole in his zone and dropped it in there for a big gain. I think this was after the the refs helped us with the running into the kicker penalty. But I think he had another play as well. Maybe that's the one you're talking about. Anyway, I think Parkinson's done himself well this year. He's certainly, made the most of every opportunity he's been given. He's a reliable receiver, a target. I think he's still not the greatest blocker. I don't know, Nathan. We didn't sign Fant to an extension, right? You remember?
Did they pick up? I don't remember now. I know. Did they pick up his 5th year option? They did, right?
I
Didn't
think they did, but they didn't sign him an extension like beyond that or anything like that, right?
Correct.
Anyway,
yes.
like
So they did pick up his 5th year option. Have not extended him.
that's my recollection as well. Like, I guess my point is like there's some pretty good tight ends in this draft. It is not up there in my requirements, but like if there's a guy that you believe is in the Kittle, like, you know, all pro level, you know, I still I think that room is not perfect. You know, like I think you got guys that if you could combine Colby Parkinson and Will Dissly, that would be a nice tight end. I think Noah Fant is not a Pro Bowl level guy. But yeah, I mean, if they come back with those 3 guys next year, I won't be upset. Yeah. I'm curious how you felt about how Abe Lucas and Charles Cross did this year overall, like for the full year. Like, what's your take on those 2 guys?
I mean, I think Lucas is the easy one. I think you have to be, really happy with him. Was it perfect? No. I mean, but for him to come in and play this well and hold down the starter spot and play, I think at worst you would say he's played serviceable, and there were certainly games where he was, very good. So for that, out of a 3rd round rookie, like that's just amazing. And I mean, I think he's got a good trajectory. Like I don't think there's any reason to think that he can't be the starter here for into a 2nd contract, right? I mean, we'll see what the rest of his rookie deal, and what he does next year and all that. But I think just based off a rookie season, I think that's what you can kind of think you'll get. Cross, I think it's interesting because I think I don't know that there was a huge difference in how the 2 played, but obviously a huge difference in where they were taken. And I think Cross is good, but is he going to be an all-pro offensive tackle? I think that is still pretty up in the air. I don't think he did anything this year that you would point to and say, no, absolutely not, or anything like that. Like, and clearly not going to be a bust, right? Again, another guy that should be a serviceable starter for you, not serviceable, like, a quality starter for you for a while. But with the 9th pick or whatever, what is the upside super duper high with him? I don't quite know it is, but I don't know that does it have to be? Probably not, with just kind of the floor he's shown you so far. What about you? Do you feel differently?
In a tunnel, so can you hear me okay?
You're breaking up a little bit, so
is that any better? I should be better now.
Yes, now you're good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like Cross has been a guy that I think looks like he could be a good starter. I don't know if I've seen anything that shows me Pro Bowl level, but I also think left tackle is a rough position to break into the league. So we'll see. I'm not like negative on him, but I'm not like, yeah, this guy's a stud. Lucas, I'm like all in on. Like, it's going to take a while for me to think that this guy isn't going to be a right tackle for the next decade, and I'm here for it. I would love to watch him play. Part of the reason I ask is because this is such a strong tackle draft, and I can't imagine you're going to draft a tackle, but like, we're in it now. Like, those are our tackles, and we're going to have a draft where we're going to watch a lot of probably quality tackles go by. And so let's just hope those 2 end up working out. I think they will. Charles Cross gives me a little more questions. But yeah, I'm curious. And the other guy that I meant to mention, rookie, another rookie from this class, Derek Young, had a nice game today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You'll probably give me shit, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Derek Young did more in this game than D. Eskridge has done in any single game as a player for the Seahawks. I thought his end-around break and tackle was nice. I thought his catch was good. I thought he had some good blocks, nice plays on special teams. I think for a 7th-round pick, he's looking okay. I'm not like super high on him, but I think he's looking okay.
I would say he's done as much as Eskridge has done in any game. I don't know that he did more necessarily, but yeah. I mean, like, if you're talking about him as like, okay, we'll see what they end up doing with Tyler, but if you have DK and you have Tyler, and then you acquire a really quality third receiver, and then Derek Young is your fourth guy that you can do fun stuff like that with, and he made a play on special teams and everything too, made a nice tackle. So yeah, I think like you said, for a 7th rounder, that's unbelievable. Dang, I was gonna say something, then you interrupted me with Derek Young, and now I don't remember. The tackles. I don't think drafting. I mean, like, I don't think drafting. When you have a strong class that isn't at a position you need, that's not always a bad thing either, because you may see some talent get pushed down, right? So, like, it's definitely a bummer for the 5th pick that they don't, need a tackle. They don't necessarily like Skaronski, whatever his name is, that he isn't a really natural fit for this team. But for whatever that 2nd pick ends up being, if suddenly you have a bunch of tackles that start coming up the board and you don't need one, you maybe get a corner, or they probably won't draft a corner on the 1st, right? But whatever the other position is, maybe a wide receiver gets pushed down to them, and that's how you get that quality third wide receiver, or something like that. So I think it's a bummer for the 5th pick, but I think it could help them maybe for their 2nd first-round pick. They'll have an early 2nd-round pick. Those could be benefited by having a bunch of tackles, or whatever position that you don't necessarily need going ahead.
That makes sense. I mean, Skaronski, like, the thing with him is, let's say you trade back from 5 to like 8, 9, or 10, and he's there somehow. I doubt he will be. I'm guessing that he's going to be the Bears pick. But for whatever reason, let's say he's there. Like, if you believe he's a Quentin Nelson level, like, guard, like, he's a tackle, but a lot of people project him as also like a really good guard in the NFL. Not all the tackles have that, but he's supposed to be. I'm not opposed. Like, I don't know about you. I'm not opposed to taking a guy like that to really like strengthen the thing about this team that I care about most, Nathan. Like, I've talked about the defense. I don't want this team to be a bunch of pussies anymore. And I mean, I know that they could all kick my ass 10 different ways. So I understand how ludicrous that sounds. But I hate watching a weak team get pushed around week in, week out by other teams. And so I want the interior offensive and defensive lines to look completely different next year. And if that means the 1st pick, like, the best guy you can get that's going to make the biggest all-pro blue chip difference is interior O-line, so be it. I would hope it's defense, but, like, man, I want these trenches to be completely different next year.
I don't have any problem with that. I mean, it's a little weird taking a tackle that high and then moving them inside, but like you said, I mean, if he can do it, if he can play a really high level guard, great. I think the one thing, if you do something like that, is you have to have a really clear purpose, and I think you pretty much have to say he's a guard and do it from day one. Like, if they do some weird thing where they're going to have him and Cross compete, and then whoever loses slides inside, and I definitely don't think that's going to play to Cross's strengths. Like, that, I think, would be a nightmare.
Cross does not profile as a guard at all. Like, definitely way too high cut.
You'd probably be best off moving him to center if you do something like that.
No, I mean, the only way I would do it is if you decided he's a guard, and he's a, like I said, Quentin Nelson all-pro level guard. Anything else, you stick to defense. But, like, I want to get back to you. You had a question. You said you're really excited for this. You're really hoping the Seahawks make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I want to just check in. Like, one, like, I know you don't want to be Debbie Downer, and I appreciate and respect that. But I also, like, do you really, like, and not, like, calling you a liar or anything, but are you just saying that to be, like, positive? Or are you really wanting to see this team play the 49ers next week?
That does take the shine off it a tiny bit, I'll be honest. But here's the thing too: if Seattle makes the playoffs and gets their asses kicked by the Niners, there's no, like, shame. Like, that's still, like, Niners fans were telling us we were going to win like 3 games at the start of this year. We made the playoffs, so I don't care, right? But if they make the playoffs and they play the Niners, there is some percent chance. It is not a 0% chance that Seattle beats the Niners.
Yeah.
And that. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's a 20% chance. There is a chance that they beat the Niners. And if you want to talk about, I mean, that would just be one of the best moments of Seahawks history, I think. I mean, Is that crazy? Is that crazy? I mean, like, I'm not saying it's better than
No,
the Super
I
Bowl win,
think
obviously, but like, that's amazing.
you're right, dude. It like hadn't even crossed my mind that was a possibility. But like,
They do have to play the game. I mean, you never know.
well, and I will say, and like people are gonna give me shit for this, and I know that the Niners knelt on the 1 yard line and all that stuff, but that was a close game all the way in. The Seahawks played the Niners closer and tougher than any team in the last like 8 games. 49ers have been blowing every team out, and the Seahawks lost by a touchdown. And they looked like crap in that game. Like the 49ers defense just was completely overwhelming, but yet the Seahawks managed to hang around. And if it wasn't for a couple plays like a Travis Homer fumble and that kind of stuff before half, it would have probably even been closer. So anyway, I think that's hilarious and awesome. I mean, I'm cheering for the Seahawks to make the playoffs because I can't help myself. Like, in my head, I know that the Seahawks would have been better off losing this game, getting a higher draft pick, not going through whatever pain they'd suffer in the playoffs. But I always want them to win, and I always want them to keep going. Like, I will always want that, even if my head tells me otherwise. But you're right.
Yeah,
That's a funny way to look at it.
And you're right. Like, maybe my head should be telling me that too, but like, I don't know. I was diehard Seattle in, what was it, Pete's first year, right? So 2010. That Seattle should lose that game. That Rams game. Seattle should not make the playoffs. Seattle should get the better draft pick. And, like, would that have been better for the franchise longer term? Maybe. I mean, yeah, probably. But also, like, then you get Beastquake and you get a playoff win against that Saints team, which was very good. Like, the parallels there are like surprising. And while it may have helped Seattle to get the higher pick and all that, like, I think that clearly would have been better for the longer term franchise, or for the long term like perspective of the franchise. They did okay anyways. Like, it didn't kill them, right? So, dropping back from whatever, I think the best chance they had was to be 14, and now maybe they're going to end up, 20, 21, 22, or something like that, right? So you're dropping down 8 picks, but 14 to 22 is, I mean, dropping from 3 to 5 is probably worse than dropping from 14 to 22. So it's not going to kill his team. And, we saw them do this before and then make the Super Bowl 2 years later. So, I'm just not that worried about it. And I'm not loving the idea of kind of getting, offered up on the altar to the Niners, but it's still playoffs and they still have a chance. And I also tweeted out that they were going to make the playoffs. So I have priors on this, and priors trump everything. So,
speaking of priors, this was a rough day for Evan Hill. I mean, you had your McVay lover fall like to like one of the worst season ever for a Super Bowl winner. You had Geno Smith, setting franchise records. You had the Seahawks actually going above 500.
Jason Myers missing a game-winning kick.
Jason Myers choking in a game-winning situation to try to
ignore what happened after that. It's fine. Let's ignore how Geno played in this game. He's the all-time leader, all-time franchise leader.
Yeah, it's a rough day to be Evan Hill. Just had to point that out. I do think that Pete Carroll had a rough day, man. Oof, there were some.
I know the baseball hat, right?
The timeout situation today. Like, there was a one play, where was it, where they were like they couldn't decide whether they were going to kick a field goal or go for it, and they had to use a timeout. They had no timeouts by the end of the regulation. Like, it was some really bad coaching along the way. But
the worst part of it is it didn't matter, and so he'll learn nothing.
He will. Well, I mean, anything he's learned, he's probably starting to forget at this point in his life. So, I mean, there's no, how they say, like, after a certain age, you can't really build muscle anymore. I know that's probably false. I think that's been proven not to be true. But I would think after a certain age, you can't really learn new football lessons. And Pete's probably nearing that point.
That's probably true. All right. So last thing here, Daddy Dennis in the chat said love for DeMar. Got continue to get positive news on him. I know he was tweeting a bunch. So super cool. I don't know if we've had a chance to talk about that since I think last time you guys did this, it was probably still pretty up in the air, right? So that whole thing, really, really scary, really tragic. But it looks like absolute best case scenario coming out of that. So that's super cool. Really glad that he's doing well. This is insane. I have to cook a Christmas dinner. It's January 8th, but I have to do that because my family does like 10 Christmases all spread out. Everyone gets their own Christmas. So I have to run. So final thought.
That works for me too.
Cool.
Let's go.
Any final closing thoughts from you, Brian?
I think it's been a overall productive season for the Seahawks. It's been a productive season for, Real Hawk Talk and Hawk Blogger crew. So if you haven't already, please go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get access to the Slack channel. We gave away tickets to the game today, 100 level. Sometimes the team gives those to us and we give them out. So anyway, would be happy to have more people as part of that. It's going to be a crazy off season. Assuming that Detroit doesn't do their job, but if they do, let's lace them back up and do it one more time, man. Let's see what happens.
All right. Thanks everybody. Yeah, like Brian said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, Patreon chat. So much fun. So go Hawks and go Lions. See you, everybody.